So today we're linking two things, not only the potential Tory leadership contest, but also Brexit and trade deals. It's like the two things we're currently doing on this channel are colliding together. And trust me, one of the things I think you will see coming up in these televised debates, first of all, is going to be, well, what's your plan to level up? After all, Johnson never actually fully concretely got around to leveling up after all. And of course, what about Brexit? And that is where we are going to see all kinds of bizarre performative acts done on Brexit. But one of the things that has just potentially come out and could damage Liz Truss quite significantly, is we've talked before on this channel about just how bad these Australian and New Zealand trade deals are. And they are bad. They are awful. The more you read the fine print, what's actually in these deals, the worse and worse they actually become. Because it turns out trying to do a trade deal at speed, literally giving everything you want to, the people you are negotiating with, means that it probably undermines your own manufacturing base. And as we always said, there is two competing thoughts. Well, there are many competing thoughts in the Conservative Party, but one of the twos that play here: global Britain and levelling up. And here's the thing: they both cannot survive together, because to level up, that means you really actually have to invest in this country and engage in some form of protectionism to at least help British manufacturers, the agricultural industry, and all sorts of British sectors. But global Britain is expressly the opposite of that, of deregulate the market, go for foreign imports over domestic products. It's the exact opposite of leveling up. And the more and more you see, Conservatives go for like the leveling up agenda, the more and more we've seen the global Britain, the more and more they've gone for the global Britain agenda, the more and more we've seen the undermining of this levelling up agenda, which again was meant to be a core pillar of the Conservative manifesto. And it has come out today that Liz Truss has been warned of this blow to the food sector that will come because of these Australian and New Zealand trade deals. So this could actually maybe end up affecting her quite a bit in these coming leadership contests, if it gets brought up at all, that is. But we'll have to see. So let's go into this article. But before we do that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel that way. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the YouTube subscription, where you get all sorts of little bells, whistles, and whatnots that you can use on YouTube. So over we go to Politico. They're the ones who I think have carried this story and who've sort of exposed it from what we can see. So the title is UK's Liz Truss was warned of blow to food sector under Australian and New Zealand trade deals. Well, I've been warning about this so many times before, so it's not surprising that this has come out. So Conservative leadership hopeful Liz Truss was given detailed warnings by her own officials in 2020 that the post-Brexit trade pacts with Australia and New Zealand would shrink the country's farming and food sectors, newly obtained government figures have revealed. Data from the UK's Trade Department shared with Politico and prepared for both deals ahead of the launch of the negotiations in 2020 for the first time the details of the relative losses and gains expected for each part of the British economy before Truss, the then Trade Secretary, now running to replace Boris Johnson in the UK as the Prime Minister, forged ahead with the pacts that have been proven highly controversial with farmers. The disclosure has already sparked anger from the UK's farming lobby, which has long argued that the deals, held up as a key prize of Britain's freedom from the European Union, will hit its members hard, while campaigners argue that it shows that tighter scrutiny of those deals are needed. We're saying, with one farmer saying, It's simply infuriating that the government ploughed on in its negotiations, while these own government departments' reports show that ministers knew that British agriculture was likely to be the most impacted sector, putting at risk hundreds of millions of pounds and thousands of jobs, said Marie Betters, the president of the lobby group of the National Farmers Union. The Trade Department, it said, does not sign trade deals, which does not work for the UK producers and businesses. The data, which was obtained through a Freedom of Information request and lodged by the former Shadow Trade Secretary Emily Thornberry, and shared exclusively with Politico, which has shared separately and interrogated and verified the data. It shows that the officials advised Truss that an Australian deal would spark a 3.44% shift in employment away from the semi-produced food sector over 15 years, making it the hardest hit part of the UK economy in employment terms. At the same time, the department projected a 0.46% drop in the value of the sector to the UK economy under the Australian deal. And for the New Zealand pack, Truss was warned to expect at least a 2.2% shift in employment away from the semi-processed foods to other sectors and a 2% hit to its economic value. The agriculture, forestry, and fishing were also set to take a hit, the analysis showed. The department projected at least a 0.69% long-term shift in jobs away from agriculture, forestry, and shifting under the Australian Pact, and a 0.16% dip in sectors' value over the same span. For the New Zealand Pact, Truss was advised that agriculture, forestry, and fishing would see a 0.6% shift in employment away from the sector and a 0.58% blow in its gross value. And remember, the fishing industry in particular, is worth pointing out, is actually very, very low earning power when it comes to GDP. This is why MPs really didn't care about it. As much as they loved to talk about it in the referendum, they soon very much, shall we say, gave up talking about the fishermen soon after. Why? Because it's worth less than 1% of GDP. And obviously, these numbers look kind of small, but in reality, they're going to hit these very small sectors quite significantly indeed. The predictions were made on the department's scenario 2, an outcome that most closely resembles the final deals struck with each nation. So British ministers have long held the prospect of wide-reaching free trade deals with Australia and New Zealand as key parts of the Brexit dividend, but domestic food producers have been wary. Truss, who formally launched a campaign to become the next Prime Minister this week with an article talking up her trade experience, laid the groundwork for these deals with Australia and New Zealand after being appointed the Trade Secretary by Johnson in July of 2019. And she oversaw these negotiations until appointment as Foreign Secretary as September of 2021. She reached a preliminary deal with Australia in June of last year, and her successor, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, sealed the pact with New Zealand in early 2020. Although the negotiations happened largely on Truss's watch. The Department for International Trade, or the DIT, has released the public assessments of these deals with Australia and New Zealand in 2020 when the talks were launched. However, these public assessments were only outlined when the impact of each part of the economy would be negative or positive without revealing the underlying numbers. And it is those projected changes that have been revealed by the underlying internal data that now show the level of insight the department under Truss would have had over the trade-offs. The department that deals would hit the British agriculture and food production most have been open secret in government, according to the former Department of International Trade official who helped lay the groundwork for the deal with Australia. In a meeting attended by the DIT, Treasury and Department for Environmental Affairs, or DEFRA officials, it was made clear that trade deals would prioritise the more profitable sectors of Britain's economy, they said. Adding, such comments appeared to be aimed at DEFRA officials in the room. And a DIT spokesperson said in a statement, our trade deals with Australia and New Zealand include robust safeguards to protect our agricultural sector, while also unblocking millions of pounds in bilateral trade and paving the way to join the £9 trillion combined GDP Trans-Pacific Partnership. Labour's Shadow Secretary and Environment Secretary Jim McThon, told Politico ministers had been, quote, warned about these deals were likely to damage our farming communities, and now it looks like the government knew all along that it was risking thousands of jobs and to huge value to the British economy. And this is going to be, I think you're going to see this as a tack line, certainly over these deals in the coming days, because you may remember when these deals were being passed, Caroline Lucas was continuously ringing the alarm bell saying, look, you promised more parliamentary scrutiny on these deals, that we would get to vote on these deals, but you haven't done that. And you can see why. These deals that are effectively going after these industries are really important to the Tory areas. So just as we've seen in the farming areas down south that have lost out and went over to the Lib Dems, mostly because of farmers turning against the Tories, are we now going to see a huge upheaval by farmers, not only attacking the Conservative Party, but attacking them for their promises on Brexit, which is going to be very, very significant? Because I said a long time ago, imagine the scenario where farming and fishing, two of the sectors that were sort of, farming was very much split, but fishing in particular was very, very pro Brexit. Imagine a situation where we could be in where that is now reversed, where they are now attacking the very Brexit that they supported. And I think we're getting there. I think we're really getting there. And it's going to be bizarre to watch and see, but that's where we are. That's Brexit in a nutshell. It is difficult to directly compare the 2020 analysis to the more recent government work on the economic impact of the final deals agreed with the New Zealand Australia, as the department has changed the way it calculates the figures in 2021. I wonder why. Anyway, in a move that it argues has brought it into line with more international standards. The most recent impact assessments for now, the stated Australian deals, do show a 0.70% hit in the value of the agricultural sector and a 2% fall in the value of semi-processed food, yet it anticipates only a 0.01% job and a 0.2% jobs in the shift away from each sector respectively. The final deal with New Zealand fares better than projected under the 2020 new methodology. And again, you have to wonder why they're using this new methodology. I think it's partly because they realized that the methodology they were using was that these do not look good. And of course, they really do not look good. Even now, under this new methodology, it's still going to be a very large impact to these sectors. Anyway, the DIT spokesman has said, we have significantly improved our modelling methodology to be more robust than our early scoping assessments and are transparent about how we model the impacts of a trade deal. But Tim Lang, the food security expert and professor of the Emeritus Food Policy at City University London, warned that whatever comes from the new Tory PM process or the next election, food matters won't go away. The danger is that by downgrading UK food production, it puts the UK at risk of future price and supply disruptions, he said. If you drive workers away, put farms out of business, you reduce the options ahead, and you make the crisis intervention latter all the more likely. Batters, the top farming lobbyist, said that the free trade deals can provide opportunities for Britain and its farmers, but said those deals must be balanced and offer benefits for both sides, including safeguards for sensitive sectors, something the Australian and New Zealand deals did not. The publication of the data comes amid a bitter row over the scope afforded to UK lawmakers to properly dig into the detail of both agreements. The Australian deal is expected to pass Parliament on the 20th of July. But the government has not called a debate in the House of Commons. I wonder why. Ola Delgi, the head of public affairs of Food and Farming Group, Sustain, said, it seems extraordinary to us that the first post-Brexit trade deal, which will disadvantage the UK farming communities, is going to be ratified by default. Parliamentarians should be calling for a debate and refusing to ratify the deal until it is being scrutinised properly. Again, so much for all that parliamentary sovereignty that the Brexiteers wanted back in 2016. They're taking it away from Parliament. And I wonder how much impact this is going to have on Liz Truss. Certainly Penny Mordaunt, well, actually not even Penny Mordaunt, because she was in Truss's department. So it's very, very likely this could affect her as well. But expect this to come up. How big this is going to be, we don't know. But for the fact that the government promising that these Brexit trade deals were going to be amazing, were going to be awesome, when you've now got the data showing that actually these aren't going to be good, that we need to properly scrutinize these deals, when this deal is going to be almost ratified by default for the pure and simple fact that they do not want anyone scrutinizing these trade deals, should be ringing alarm bells for a whole lot of people. And remember, one of the big arguments for Brexit was that we wanted more parliamentary sovereignty. Well, at the moment, the current government is taking away any parliamentary sovereignty from these trade deals. And as we've said time and time before, if you were a Brexiteer, or you thought that the UK leaving the EU was hard, wait until we try and get out of these awful trade deals that we've signed with Australia and New Zealand. It's not going to go well. It is not going to go well at all. And we still do not know what the full impact of these trade deals are going to be. Obviously, it's going to really negatively affect the farming and agricultural sector, and that is going to have huge implications across the UK industry as a whole. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, we'll see you all next time.